So thank you everyone so much for coming. You're here today to hear about our programs and what we've been doing in the past year, and also to celebrate the release of our brand new annual report. We're super excited to tell you more about everything that we've been doing. Just a side note, the annual report covers our fiscal year, which is roughly June to June. So we're looking at June 2022 through June 2023. And so we'll be talking about our progress during that time, and then of course catching up on what we've done between then and now as well. My name is Leah Gleason. I'm the Communications and Community Outreach Director, and I'm going to be moderating this discussion. Side note, I was not here during the time that we are reporting on. I'm a new staff member. So I'm our moderator, and the rest of our staff is here. We have Chris. He is our Development Director. Sidebar. Jen was the Development Director during the time that we've reported on, so you'll see that in our report. We also have Taylor and Kelsey here from our forestry program. If you have your camera on, you can see them waving. And then we have Nicole from our Sierra Nevada America. And we are recording. And we've got Jody, our Finance Director here. And I believe somewhere in the audience, we also have Annika, who's our Education and Outreach Coordinator. And I think we have a couple other board members and SNAP people as well. So thank you, staff, board, for being here. And it is my pleasure to introduce, last but not least, our fearless leader and executive director, Jenny Hatch, who's going to tell you a little bit more about our work.
Hello, it's me in the little screen you see. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all. Happy end of the year. And we're pleased to have you here for our Brown Bag annual report annual report release. Sorry, I still have a little bit of a cough in my throat. I just wanted to briefly share with you all an overview before we kind of go into Q&A and set up our just discussion format for today. So first of all, this year we had an annual retreat with staff and board, which we do every year. And at that time, we came up with a new mission statement. So I wanted to share that first and foremost with y'all. I had it in my, hold on, gosh darn. So basically, I'll just tell it to you and then I'll put it in the chat later. Our new mission is that we unite communities and conservation organizations on behalf of the Sierra Nevada for conservation and protection of its ecosystems. So I will give you all the exact language for that in the chat in just a moment. But moving on, we're pleased with that, and we feel that it really helps encapsulate, and it's really concise for our work. This image right here, this infographic from our annual report, also Leah put together, and it's a nice depiction of some of our program work and how it intersects with each other and connects and helps to fulfill our mission. So, in the beginning right here, we are founded on building capacity for the conservation community and being an alliance of that conservation community. And through partnership with our member group program, our host site partnerships, and our private-public collaborations. My daughter is walking into the room and needs to exit now. We have different programs that we do and facilitate through that. We coordinate advocacy and policy work. We implement and provide workforce development, and we convene the conservation community at conferences and meetings quarterly, and collaborative projects, and really leading important initiatives on lots of different fronts, like Take Care Sierra is a really good example of that. And then on the ground collaboration also occurs through our partnership and our capacity building. So together we identify priorities and then implement them together in a variety of different ways. But our core funded programs, you can see here our longstanding AmeriCorps program, where we have, 32 AmeriCorps members with 20 some odd different conservation organizations all over the range. our forestry fellowship program is a similar model, but not AmeriCorps, and is monitoring and leading reforestation efforts in the region, legislative meetings and events, engaging community in public cleanup events and partnership like the Great Sierra River cleanup, which we coordinate across the range at multiple sites with multiple partners, and then promoting traditional ecological knowledge and working with our tribal community partners to actually implement that on the ground, and bringing disadvantaged communities into nature through a variety of our staff out in the field doing that work, and always looking at the larger organizations we can communicate with and work with to kind of really advance that in terms of conservation leaders. And then, other programs like sustainable recreation and things that another workforce program we have is the ambassador program. So there's a lot we're doing. It's hard to tell that story. It's hard to articulate it, but an important takeaway is that not only are we administering and facilitating and convening, but we are also actively collaborating and planning and implementing restoration with our partners and advocacy and all these different things. So very important, and we're really grateful for that work. Then you can go to the next infographic, Leah, and it'll show, this is just a fun little infographic that kind of summarizes all of our work in a kind of quantitative fashion from last fiscal year. So you can see that some of the big things that I will highlight is through our advocacy work, we were able to secure $150 billion for state funded conservation efforts. And there was many, hours of watershed restoration work, 18,000 we captured. We had 30,000 student ambassador hours on the ground, educating the public about leave no trace ethic and sustainable recreation. And I just lost my shared screen.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It was the cat. I'm very sorry. It's coming back.
Oh, the Zoom world. It's funny, I recently was at an in-person meeting planning a collaborative grant that we're working on with some partners, and we were in person, and I felt really handicapped because we weren't on Zoom. So there's these kinds of problems when you're on Zoom, and then there's problems when you're in person too, because you feel so used to being able to so easily see things. So many advocacy meetings planned, and 4 million seedlings dedicated to reforestation through our forestry program, a huge number we're really proud of. And we also secured another 2.5 million directly for forest health projects in the region, and restored thousands of acres, and many thousands of volunteers recruited through all of our work. I feel something really unique about our organization is that we're the only conservation organization that has staff on the ground all over the Sierra in so many different locations, and that really makes us unique in our ability to really be on the ground and really affect so many communities. So that's what I wanted to share, and we'll get into a lot of, you all can ask questions.
Can I ask a question now? This is a great chart. I love this chart. When I talk to donors, I need the backup for each of these bullets. So is that thing available? Like, actual data, for example, 160 billion, what does that mean?
Yeah, that is through basically like different kinds of funding allocations in the governor's budget and things of that nature that were allocated to conservancies and such. Yeah, I can definitely get all that for you.
Yeah, you don't need to give it to me now, but each of these, I need some sort of backup charts or.
Yeah, that's great feedback, Prakash.
All right, thank you.
Prakash is one of our star board members. We're so grateful to have him. He's been really helping to move our work forward. All right, I'll let Leah take the stage again and moderate some questions and let the audience ask some questions.
Thank you. So as I said earlier, the format of today is going to be kind of a moderated discussion where our program directors and co-directors are going to share some information about what they've done this year. And that's what you'll find in our annual report. But instead of reading it, it's always nice to hear it from the actual faces who did it. And before we get into that, I just want to acknowledge two people who are not here. Rebecca is our SNAP director, and then Lise is our 30 by 30 partnership coordinator. And she's sick today. So Jenny will be speaking for Lise, and Nicole, the co-leader, will be speaking for Rebecca. Okay, so I'm wondering if you all could share with us, what was your program's biggest accomplishment this year? Let's hear from Taylor and Kelsey.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. I love talking about our accomplishments because I'm so proud of our team. But before I do it, it's really special seeing those infographics and seeing, that I only was able to see today. It's really special. So I encourage everyone to take a look at it, and thank you all for putting it together. Because when you're in the daily grind, it's hard to see your own work, but it's even harder, if not impossible, to see the group's work, the extended group, everything from, the people that are on boots on the ground to the board members to the volunteers and everyone involved. So it's really lovely to see it all together. And it's a great reminder of why we do this. So along those lines, talking about our accomplishments, it's amazing because we've had so many accomplishments amongst our 10 or so staff this year. Our staff are spread throughout the Sierra, but none of it would have been possible without receiving and implementing the funds that we got, the $2.5 million that we got from CAL FIRE's Business and Workforce Development Grant. It was just such an injection of not just fun, but energy and support and encouragement from CAL FIRE. It gave us the opportunity. Well, it gave us the ability to work on supporting healthy forests in the Sierra Nevada, implementing forest health and natural resource management projects throughout the Sierra. We were able to hire about 10 staff, including our amazing project manager, Kelsey Glasseter, who has been a phenomenal lead of this program. And everyone has done incredible things like Jenny mentioned, growing millions of baby trees for reforestation, to organizing projects in this Yosemite Sequoia area, to planting trees in the Southern Sierra. And it's just been really special to help facilitate and encourage a team of mostly females. Most of my staff are all women doing this work. It was completely unintentional. They were just the best qualified candidates that we hired doing this work. And I think that's, very rare in the forestry sector as well. And so to see our team go forward with the CAL FIRE funding, doing this work with our host sites, it's been really special. So I think that's my rambling way to answer what's our biggest accomplishment.
That's great. Thank you. A lot done in forestry this year. It's really awesome to hear. And in a minute, I'm going to ask you about your most memorable on the ground project. So we'll hear more in a second. Let's go to Nicole. What was SNAP's biggest accomplishment this year?
Making sure I'm unmuted. Kind of like Taylor was saying, it's so hard. There's so many different components. And so as I was trying to think of how to answer that, it's so varied. We had people doing education primarily online. We had people on the ground doing field trips with students. We had another SNAP that was doing education in the restaurant field. Another was working primarily on tobacco and its impact. So our biggest impact to me is really the breadth of information that's out there and all of the ways it's such a multifaceted program that we're hitting conservation from so many angles and really trying. It's almost like people learn different ways, right? They learn kinesthetically, they learn visually, they learn auditorially. I feel that we're kind of the diversity of our force is like that. We're sharing information, we're doing watershed restoration, they're doing monitoring, and like Taylor said, it's all over. They're all the way down to Bishop, they're in Grass Valley, they're in Tahoe, they're in Visalia. So as far as numbers, in the document, I can't, I'm not great with this stuff. So I had it pulled up, but now I can't see the numbers that were on the graphics. But the other piece is I think that SNAP has been shifting over the years. And in the past, there was a lot more like boots on the ground sort of conservation work. And now it's really shifted more into the ones that are doing on the ground work is a lot more monitoring and preparing the area for the restoration. So lots of ground covered to make it possible for the host sites to then exponentially do larger projects. We're kind of getting it going and then coming back in and monitoring how it went, trees in the ground. So kind of a broad answer.
Yeah, that's great. I do happen to have the graphic here. I think it was over 2,500 sites that were monitored this year. So
yeah.
Awesome work. How about Jenny? Tell us what our advocacy or 30 by 30 accomplishments were.
Yeah, definitely. I just provided some of the stats in terms of numbers and funding, but a summary and background of kind of where we were in the beginning of the legislative, this time of year, planning for last legislative cycle. We were going into that year with a very grim outlook of the California budget. And there was a lot of proposed conservation cuts in terms of funding on the budget. And really we met, we're part of the Sierra Consortium and we coordinate with our member groups. And we're doing this again this year, really come into the year with a strategic plan of what are our priorities and what do we really want to focus on. Last year, it was really obviously maintaining funding and setting the bar high of what's really needed and continuing to really educate decision makers and legislators about this region and its impact to the rest of the state, both California and Nevada, in terms of natural resources and energy and all of the things. So, last year was the first year we were able to get back into the Capitol and have these in-person meetings. We've just been doing Zoom meetings during COVID years. And so it was just super impactful to be able to gather in person. And we had over 50 legislative meetings and had really just clear, concise asks. And we also were able to bring California natural resource leadership to the Sierra for some important meetings with decision makers up here. And also, like, while we were in the Capitol, have some kind of special events with folks down there as well. And just that FaceTime just really, we just really saw that it made a big difference and that it restored funding in the budget. And that was huge. And, I just have to say it's been such a blessing to be able to actually have the staffing capacity with Lise on board to really work with me and the community to really build our collaboration and our partnership. We have a whole 30 by 30 working group that meets monthly, and we're all supporting each other on important landscape conservation priorities and, sign-on letters and all the things. And it's just made it such a huge difference. So I've been thrilled. It's just felt really exciting and fun I'm just hopeful for, more field tours and things this coming year with that effort.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think now is a good time to point out that all of our programs have been able to do more this year through funding. And so for those of you watching, just to kind of let you know that we are in our year-end fundraising campaign. We are trying to raise $25,000 for serving the Sierra by the end of the year. And the best thing you can do is help share that message. So that doesn't mean you necessarily have to write us a check. If you tell 10 people and they share that with 10 people, the power of sharing is really, really important. So we'll be posting this recording after the fact, and you can share it with those that you think might be interested in our conservation impacts. That would be very helpful. Speaking of our impacts, what was the most memorable on-the-ground conservation project for your program this year? Kelsey, would you share with us?
Sure.
So during May, we had a really amazing event with our Sierra Core group. It was spearheaded by one of our fellows, Meredith Sierra, and it was a tree planting inspection and training event. So all of our fellows came out to the Placerville Nursery, that's where Meredith is hosted at. And she gave us a tour of the facilities and a rundown on all the things that she does at her nursery. And that was a really good sharing experience for the fellows because all the fellows are working on such a wide variety of projects. So having the ability for them to see what other fellows are doing is really important. And then also throughout the year, fellows had the opportunities to visit their host sites and move around. I know that people came out to LA Moran to visit Natalie, who's on our call right here. She's one of our stellar fellows as well. But that training event was a huge success. We had our CAL FIRE funders come out. Jenny and Taylor and I were all there, and it was really empowering to get everyone together and to see the work that other fellows were doing. So that first day was at the Placerville Nursery, and then from there, we did 4 days of tree planting and inspection training. So this is a huge part of the world of forestry, is running these reforestation contracts. So we have another fellow who was helping lead that aspect of the project. And there, Melissa Paulson took us out onto field sites, and we went and we observed the planting crews and did the inspections to make sure that all the plantings were being done to spec. So that was really good training there as well. And then we also had time where we all got to plant trees ourselves. So it was a really amazing week-long event where lots of baby trees were planted. Taylor, do you have anything to add to that?
How could I? How could I add to such a perfectly eloquent depiction of such an amazing event? It really was special, though. It was great to have our funder out there. It was great to have so many different partners and to really fully appreciate the work that's being done in the area. So no, nothing more than just gratitude.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you do. I think it's incredible. And we have worked pretty hard this year in particular to share with you all that we do a lot of on-the-ground conservation work. Although our forestry and our SNAP programs are technically about workforce development to create new conservation leaders, they are just as much about the on-the-ground impacts at our host sites. And so, Nicole, I'll ask you to tell us more about that on-the-ground work. What was your most memorable project this year?
One of my favorite parts of the job, I'm not on the ground with them, but I check in with all the SNAPs monthly to support their professional development and what they're doing. And so I get to hear what they're up to. We did also have a group day spring training where we did we went to one of our host sites and were trained by the forester who's doing the prescribed burning and clearing on their land, assisted with the burn and did that for a day, learning from him and getting that process. But then another day, we have a lot of SNAPs that are interested in interpretive guiding, and a number of the ones that from this timeline actually are working for state parks and are doing that. So we did go into Yosemite and had one of their guides take us on a hike and got to really watch his process and how he engaged in different ways that he made things very tangible, and then processed with our SNAPs after the fact, like how are they doing their interpretive work, their education work on the ground. So we try and kind of hit the different ways that they want to have an impact and make sure that they have that information. In the storytelling that they give me throughout the year, an on-the-ground event that I thought was very impactful in my mind and was clearly for the SNAP is that the Trout Unlimited is working in conjunction with Ron Good and the North Fork Mono Tribe. And it was this very kind of eloquent weaving together of resources. And so the tribe was working on the land and felling dead trees, but then they were providing that matter for Trout Unlimited and all of the people that were there volunteering to create BDAs and to do meadow restoration. And so the ways that SNA and SNAP and the Forestry Fellows just weave together all these resources and all the people that are involved across the Sierra in trying to keep the forest healthy and make our communities safe and healthy for the people. It was just a great example to me of all the players that are coming in to make that happen.
Yeah, that's great. We love seeing collaborations. Thank you for sharing. I just want to remind all of you that this is designed to be an open discussion. So as you're listening, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you end up watching this after the fact, you can leave questions on our YouTube or social media and we'll get back to you. So Jenny, I know that if Lise were here, she would be able to share some awesome memories from visiting the Capitol, but what are your memories of some of the on the ground 30 by 30 and advocacy work this year?
You know, I actually might switch programs on you and throw you for a loop here a little bit, because I don't want to just highlight just these three. But I would say that obviously, you know, and I kind of feel like I answered that question in my last response, just talking about our time in the Capitol and our time bringing California Natural Resource Agency's leadership up to Truckee. And, you know, there was a lot of things that we did that was really great. But in terms of just that conservation impact, and other programs that we've done on the ground this year, I just wanted to bring up our Lake Tahoe Ambassador Program, which is our third workforce development program for high school and junior college students. It's a summer program, so we have these sort of like step pathways, right? So we have that program, and then we have AmeriCorps, and then we have our Forestry Fellowship Program, which is like the most high, you know, full benefited salaried positions and high level management. In the Ambassador Program, though, we hired, you know, almost 20 individuals this summer, and they were working at many, I think it was like something like, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, I think like around 15 different sites around Lake Tahoe. We have it just in Tahoe right now because we're just really starting to get the kinks out and develop it. But they're working with Nevada State Parks, they're working with the community associations and visitor centers and you know, beaches and Forest Service and many different sites there that are really lacking in capacity. And a really stark example of that was on July 5th, after the 4th of July. Our ambassadors were there on the ground at really just devastating amounts of trash that were left post 4th of July in the Lake Tahoe area, and we're leading volunteer cleanups for some of those really most impacted sites like Zephyr Shoals. So, you know, that really made a big impact on our ambassadors and really motivated them to want to educate the public more and really make change, you know, in terms of sustainable recreation and what's happening in the Sierra with visitation, especially over these big holiday weekends. And so, yeah, we were there on the ground and really just many thousands of tons of trash pickup that on the July 5th. So, and then, you know, they also continued throughout the summer, and those folks and our AmeriCorps members who were serving with us directly we're organizing other cleanups throughout the summer, and the Great Sierra River cleanup itself, which was a huge event in terms of on the ground impact for our rivers and beaches and public sites that are just yeah, trash is just a huge issue currently. So I just wanted to mention that one.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And you can read a lot more about our ambassadors and the pretty staggering statistics of what they did in our annual report. They did a lot of contact points surveying with the public and some other awesome things this past year. So I'm going to link together the next two questions that I have for you all. I think that they're sort of related.
We'll have hand raised. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Oh,
I saw that Stephanie Smith had a hand raised at
great.
one point, and then she just took it down.
If you have a question, please go ahead.
Stephanie, are you there?
We're going to accident.
That's okay. If it comes back, let us know. We're happy to pause. Taylor, in forestry, what did you learn this year, and how did that help you develop some goals for next year?
Wow. What did I learn this year? I learned how little I actually know. How about that? I think it's one of the great benefits of things I'm most grateful for in this position is how often and how much I'm learning from, you know, everyone I get to work with. Our entire team The folks that are out there, doing the reforestation work, the forest health work, the organizing work. And it's really impressive. I think also one of the big things that I don't think I fully appreciated until really implementing this program is how much a force multiplier workforce capacity, workforce development programs are. They benefit everybody, absolutely everyone involved. There's such a low cost investment for everyone involved. They pay huge dividends, not just to the people that we hire, right? So we hire our fellows, we hire our staff, and they get a good job at a good pay. They get to go do amazing work, but these are professional development training programs, and so they get to grow and expand as early career forest health professionals. So that's just amazing. But also everyone benefits so dramatically from such a relatively minimal investment. Our host sites dramatically benefit. They get a great staff that's dedicated to their project. Our funder gets to show like how much they're actually doing in this area. Our whole team benefits from, co-sharing, co-learning together. So I think that's a big thing that I learned, how much of a force multiplier these workforce capacity programs are. And then the second question was, what are our goals for next year, I think?
What are your goals?
Yeah, I mean, the easy lift there is just more of the same, right? We've got a really great program going, and I want to make it, I want to expand it. I want to do more. I want to continue to implement our powerful program for CAL FIRE. But I also want to pivot from our success. We were recently told that we were awarded a grant from Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, and I want to use those funds to work more with tribes, develop amazing workshops and trainings with our partners like American Forests. We've been so fortunate to meet and work with all different groups, but especially tribes like Waylon at the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, who's been helping us make connections with tribal groups. And I really want to honor those relationships and commit to Sierra Nevada Alliance's mission of, uniting people and organizations to protect Sierra Nevada ecosystems and communities. That's what we're all dedicated toward, and I want to make sure that our goal is fully in alignment with that. Well, and I mean, God, now you got me going. Now, I'm sure both Jenny, my boss, and then my team are all probably tired of hearing all the different goals and things I want to do. So I'm going to share that with everybody here. I'm planning on hiring 15 more fellows next year to place with host sites throughout the Sierra. I want to do more of this work. We want to have this funding to pivot, to leverage the opportunity of having these 15 people throughout the region. We're applying to all kinds of new funding, including Department of Conservation's Climate Smart grants, so that we can maximize our efforts and capitalize on the fact that we've got some really good people spread throughout the area. So yeah, just more of the same, bigger, better, but also really focusing on our partnerships with key people, key organizations like our tribes.
Thank you. And of course, one of our goals for doing this is to network with all of you who are watching, to maybe inspire other conservation organizations to network, share resources, help each other out. And so I'll give you the opportunity, Taylor, to share what are your specific needs to get your goals accomplished next year for someone who might be watching and want to help.
What are our specific needs? Honestly, taking from what I learned this year, how much of a force multiplier, I keep going back to that word because I'm really shocked. I've been really surprised. And I guess the need, maybe I'm flipping it a little bit, maybe is a need is for everyone we work with and everyone we haven't yet had the opportunity to work with to see how important and how valuable these workforce development projects are. So the need, I guess, is for everyone to see how with just a little bit of an investment, everyone can benefit so much. And to share this message, that we're all doing this work. And like you have in the report, Leah, you know, billions of dollars, you know, brought in for conservation, all the trees that we planted, all the projects that we worked on. It really doesn't take too much of an investment. It just takes a lot of really amazing groups to get together and focus our energies. So I guess that's my need.
I have
Okay.
a question for Taylor. By the way, it's fantastic work you guys are doing in terms of restoration to our forest. It's amazing work, and please keep up that good work. But we're talking about expanding our role. Is there any effort or thinking about preventive things we can do to the forest to make it more resilient to forest fires, so our restoration isn't as as difficult as it is right now? So are there any thoughts or grant writing for that type of work?
So the question is preventative
Right. I'm a
projects?
big believer in an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So what can we do to make our forests so they aren't so vulnerable to forest fires and diseases and all the things that you guys are working on?
Yeah. Again, more of the same. So it's a wild answer because it's exactly what we are doing, right? It's the forest health work, it's the thinning of the overstocked forest, it's the reforestation of the currently burnt over areas and destroyed habitats. It's the watershed work that it's more of that, because we've got great people doing that right now. And then towards your question about going forward, it's bringing in more funding, bringing in more partners that can do that regionally, and supporting and empowering people like our tribes, like the smaller rural groups. So far, because that's a big question in my world, in my head, not just the forestry world as well, is how do we do that? And I haven't found a better answer for prevention than just empowering as many local groups throughout the region as possible to do this work. I haven't found a better answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's where advocacy work, Prakash, is really, really important, because we really need a much greater financial investment into the region to really do the amount of work that's truly needed. And I'll also just add that the grant that I'm working on to Strategic Growth Council that's due next week with Sierra Streams Institute and South Yuba Citizens League, Nevada County, and the Nisenan are working on these sort of like, it's a community climate resiliency grant on, integrating what's happening in the forest landscape and the technology and the tools that we're using to assess that with census tracts for disadvantaged communities, and just basically bridging that like WUI or that like, landscape with the suburban areas and communities, and trying to get that interface and work. And then while at the same time empowering the rural economic development so that the people are there can be doing the jobs that are needed in terms of climate and whether that's like green infrastructure or on the forest type sustainability work. So those are all things that we definitely have on our vision and are actively working on to try and help coordinate, plan, and do with our partners currently. And it's, again, it's just competing for the funding to do it. All these funding pots are super overprescribed. I think there was like 60 applications and they have funding for 6 or something crazy. So, trying to be efficient and write these grants to multiple funders and build our partnerships so we have strong proposals and we're very thoughtful and using the best science. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
I encourage you guys to expand. I mean, keep up the work you're doing, but when opportunities arise, expand into more of the preventative type of health things we can do to the forest and the communities as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to provide some staffing capacity to do that in Nevada County and the Bear Yuba watershed as a kind of a pilot. Exactly what you're talking about, working with fire safe councils and firewise communities. So fingers crossed.
Well, I think that's a great segue because I've noticed in the SNAP program, there is quite a bit of preventative work in the form of educational outreach, environmental advocacy, and other things, quite a bit of diverse projects through 29 service members last year. So Nicole, will you tell us what did you learn and how did that inform your goals for next year and where do you hope to go?
Yeah. And so in response to precaution, you just kind of said it, Leah, is one of the ways that we're doing prevention is by doing the education early on and giving children hands-on experiences. So I feel like the messaging in the last, once we really started looking at global warming and climate change and all the different changes in the language, what research has shown is that people become shut down a lot of time by doom and gloom messaging. It's actually people lose their sense of agency. And so by being out there doing education, whether it's SNAPs, Forestry Fellows, or the ambassadors, by giving actionable information, actionable steps they can individually take, we're empowering young people to realize they can be part of the solution. And so some of the things that I've learned, I'm trying to think of other things. Taylor hit so much of it and said it so much more eloquently. But I was thinking, what else can I hit on? And they're there, they're coming. These new professionals want into this field. And part of our work is how do we get them? So in interviewing 90 people to fill 30 SNAP member roles, there were a lot of other people that could have stepped in and learned. And a lot of these young professionals were saying, I just can't get in. I have my degree, I have this passion, but I can't get into the field. And so that's a role we're filling, is we're giving them through AmeriCorps or CAL FIRE, these different programs, the doorway to amplify this work. And hopefully by doing a lot of education with children, we're only making that even bigger, that they're aware that there are things they can do to have an impact. And then Leah, what was the second part of that?
I know I keep sandbagging you with the two questions, but what are your goals for next year?
So many. I think one for me personally that is really on my mind, so I'll just say it is wanting to, and Taylor mentioned it. I feel like there are so many people doing amazing work that I want to bridge. And we're all doing different training. We're all like providing amazing resources, and our host sites are providing our members with amazing resources. How do we leverage that? How do we open up that training so that any of our sites can have access to it? I think that's the beauty, like Jenny was saying earlier, the beauty of Zoom is that I don't have to be anywhere near you to be able to log in and watch something if it's being recorded, or watch it later if it was recorded, or participate in some way. So I would love to enhance the ways that we're I call it cross-pollinating. And additionally with SNAPs in those monthly meetings I'm doing, I love connecting people. And so hearing what they're interested in then is connecting them to each other and finding outside resources for that. So those are continuing to enhance that. Additionally, we're wanting to do more partnering with tribes. It's refreshing the shift towards more respectfulness of Indigenous wisdom. And in our mind, the idea that we have 30, 15, 20, however many SNAPs we have at a time, if we can expose them to that knowledge in an intimate way, in a respectful way, that's a force multiplier. And there's data that shows when an Indigenous crew does a prescribed burn and then a non-Indigenous crew does it that's just burning, there's a very different response from the landscape, at least in the research that I've seen. And so if we can create more relationship with the land rather than I'm just going to go burn, like an action I'm going to take versus this is an ecosystem and I'm part of it, I think we'll see better outcomes if we can expand on that. So that's one of our goals also.
I'll just mention a goal overall for our organization as well, is just, well, there's many, but one is really just continuing to work on a really sustainable organization. We've been around for 30 years, but we still struggle greatly with cash flow and enough unrestricted funding to pay for our overhead and our administrative cost of like people like our executive director, our finance director, our communications, and Chris, our development staff, are not fully funded under grants and yet are super crucial for running this organization. And so we're really working on a lot of financial planning and reinvestment and just a lot of different strategies to try and improve the sustainability of our organization for the long term, so that we can keep doing this work and we can grow. Or we're talking about growth, but it's really hard as like the leader of this organization to think about growing our staff and doing those things when we are struggling to make payroll, paycheck to paycheck, waiting for grant reimbursements. So it's a really hard thing about being a nonprofit. But luckily we just brought on 6 new really savvy board members with a lot of experience. And we have folks like Prakash who have been super helpful. And I'm really optimistic about our leadership and technical advisement that we have available to us for those types of things right now. Yeah.
And if you want to help us build capacity, you can go to sierranevadaalliance.org/donate.
And a good segue.
So we're going to wrap up with a fun question here and try to honor you all's lunch hour commitment and not go too long. But before we do that, I just want to share on the community engagement front how this kind of all comes together. None of our programs operate in a vacuum. There are a lot of ways that the public engages in the work we do. In the past year, we did things like the Wild and Scenic Film Fest on tour, the Great Sierra River cleanup, tabling events, the annual Tahoe Summit, a lot of ways that the public can come and engage and learn about what we do. And we overlap with all of our other programs at the same time. We help promote forestry. We work with SNAP members to do various events. And you can read more about that stuff in the annual report as well. Okay, something fun. What is something interesting or unique that people might not know about your program? Taylor, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. We have a really great team, and it's always hard to peek behind the curtain because we talk about our accomplishments and everyone can see that. Well, I'm reminded of something one of my mentors told me. And it's one of those things that's just so wise, but it's taken me, just years to let it come into my thick skull is, the process is as important as the product. And the product are the accomplishments, and everyone, we can see those, we can talk about those. And so what you're speaking to is this process. And the process is really special. We have a professional development training program. And so yesterday was a great example. We had our staff meeting with our fellows, and it's an opportunity where we can all co-share and co-learn. And once a month, we work really hard at growing as individuals, as professionals in this field. And so we had a wonderful meeting yesterday to, learn to do a brainstorm session on how we can work with our partners in new and creative ways. But I got to use it as an opportunity to teach our staff and to, facilitate a discussion on how to do brainstorm sessions. So just right there, it's a group of people getting together, challenging ourselves to be better people, to be better professionals. And we're committed to this, and we do this regularly. And so I think that's something that, peek behind the curtain, not a lot of people get to see about our programming, is that we have a good team that is committed to each other, to treating each other like, humans, with all of our goals and aspirations, but also foibles and growth edges that we're trying to work with. And so, you know, it's easy to just see the big accomplishment, but behind the scenes is, you know, a team of people dedicated to this.
Awesome. Thank you. I think there's a real commitment to continuing to grow as people on your team. It's wonderful. And how about you, Nicole? Something fun or interesting people don't know about the SNAP program?
Goodness. I think one thing that pops to mind for me is that we're talking about the communities in Sierra, but people all over this country love the Sierra Nevada. And so I've only been around for 2 hiring cycles, going on a year. And we have, the majority are California natives, but every time I think we've had 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we've had 8 that have driven from across the country to be here, because this is such an amazing part of the country, and people from all over California recognizing that most of the water comes from the Sierra. We're doing so much by keeping our trees healthy. We're sequestering so much carbon, and so I guess I want people to understand that it's not just a local effort. Like, our nation can support this region. So that's we do the same sort of connecting and things like Taylor was talking about. What's anything that's quirky or interesting? I think a piece too, I guess, for anybody watching who's thinking about, wow, would I want to become part of one of these programs, or what else is this doing? Imposter syndrome is a real thing. And so we have a lot of young professionals who are like, well, how can I make a difference? Like, how can I do enough? Do I know enough? We actually had a young person say at our spring retreat or spring training, after he'd listened to the other people, everybody's talking about processing how they'd come to where they are. And he's like, I don't even know if I should be here with you guys. Like, I don't know that I'm enough for this. And then he shared about himself, and it was like, oh my goodness, you're amazing. You know, and they're all these amazing individuals. And so it's, again, finding a way to empower young professionals so that they know they have a place, and not making it so difficult to get in the door that they don't even know how to get hired on with some of these agencies, and they're trying to figure out how to write a 10-page resume, you know. So we're helping them find their ways in. So that, I don't know if that answers, but that's my answer.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. And for those of you who don't know, as Nicole's saying, SNAP is a very accessible early career development program for people who might not have any experience in the field. It's a great way to get started. And there's a lot of staff bonding and team building and skills building that maybe people might think they don't have, but it's easy to come in and get a lot of training. So thank you for sharing. And Jenny.
Well, and I'd like to add to that, like,
Oh, you froze for a sec, Nicole. Try again.
Just thank you, Leah, for adding that yes, we do have SNAP members that are actually, they've always had like a parallel of, like, maybe their degree is in something else, but they're really finding they want to shift into environment. So thank you for noting that. And they find their way in. And AmeriCorps is kind of a beautiful program in the sense that you step into agencies that give you responsibility that you wouldn't necessarily get. You wouldn't even be able to get hired with the experience you come in with, and yet you get to prove yourself there. So then by the end, they're like, wow, I was working on projects I would never get to touch. So yeah, that is a wonderful thing about the program. You don't have to know a lot coming in the door. You learn on the job.
That's great. And if you're interested, we've got a lot about that on our website. So we welcome your participation. And Jenny, our fearless leader, hopefully you all know this, but if you don't, she is incredibly passionate about the environment and dedicated to protecting it. So we love that about her. Jenny, what's something else that's fun or unique about SNA that people might not know?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think surprises people the most, I get a question a lot about, is like, you know, where's your office and where is everybody? You know, we have a very small office in Tahoe that's basically, you know, a few desks and sometimes I feel like it's more of a storage unit, even though we have a storage unit too. But it is a home base that we can host meetings and things of that nature. But where we are now, especially, I mean, before COVID, but even more so now, is we have staff all over. Kelsey's in June Lakes down on the east side. I'm in South Lake Tahoe. Nicole's down in Auburn. Taylor's in LA. And Leah is in North Shore, and we have a few different staff in Truckee and North Shore. So we have staff all over, and Chris is actually in Colorado. So it's really interesting, how we are all spread out, and yet we're able to get this work done for this region. And we come together, a few times a year. And like I said, we have staff all over the place beyond this. And besides that, I would say, the organization's been around for 30 years. I've been here for 10 of those. I'm lucky to do that. And I just think generally it's just, people don't know how much we do. And it's just a hard thing to tell the story, and we're working on improving that all the time. So, but yeah, I'm proud of everybody. I'm proud of the work and the organization and our board and our partners. And I'm grateful for our funders and our sponsors. We just got a grant. We were talking a lot about tribes. We just got a grant from La Trobe to really increase our tribal technical assistance abilities in the next year. And yeah, it's an honor. So thank you.
Thank you. I think we've had a really productive hour of sharing a lot about our programming, and this is our first year trying to do it this way and give a more kind of verbal explanation to what's in the report for all the different learning styles. And we'll be posting this. If you have questions that come up, you can enter them there on the social media where you find the post, or you can email us info@sierranevadaalliance.org if you want to support this work. The link to donate is sierranevadaalliance.org/donate. And we just really appreciate the opportunity to connect with all of you. So thank you so much for our staff, board, partners, and everyone watching. Have a wonderful day.